I'm going to be joined live from Gothenburg by my friend Björn Fagerström. He is President Director of the EIT Manufacturing North, so he is another co-location director with offices in Gothenburg, Sweden. But he's serving 8 EU countries, 4 Nordic, 3 Baltic, and the UK. He has more than 20 years of management experience, 15 years of academic experience in a broader range of industry from automotive, oil and gas, energy, pulp and paper, and some more. His roles included R&D Director, Product Development Manager, and CEO. And in addition, he's also a part-time professor. Hi, Björn. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you, Johannes. I'm doing great here in Gothenburg, and the sun is shining as always.
Super, super. You are leading us in a topic that's really burning under a lot of nails because one of your countries is the United Kingdom. Obviously, the Brexit changed the participation of the United Kingdom in the Horizon programs a little bit around. And we want to talk about what does that do to our startups, what does that do to UK startups. So please, Björn, go ahead, lead us into that topic.
Thanks a lot, Johannes, and thanks a lot for this nice introduction. So we will now have 2 great presentations covering the UK ecosystem in the post-Brexit era. And as Johannes mentioned, UK is part of the North, CLC North, and we also have 3 Baltic and 4 Nordic countries. And EIT Manufacturing is an innovation community, and several North countries are ranked high on the Global Innovation Index, with UK on 4th place 2020 globally. And today we will get some more insights for the future development of UK during post-Brexit. And obviously we are interested to hear whether you will go up or down in the Global Innovation Index and get some insights. First out is Dr. Christian Kesberg, Austrian Trade Commissioner for the UK and Commercial Counsellor at the Austrian Embassy in London. Christian has a long international career and has been working in many countries with business development and how to engage startups. Second out this afternoon is Renate Schnutt, Head of Startup and Innovation Programs at Advantage Austria. Renate has a broad experience in strategic management and innovation programs. And she's also co-founder of the Austrian Women's Rights Referendum. So that is great. I think I stopped there with the introduction, as we like to give you as much time as possible to give your presentations. And in case time allows, which I think it will, we will have some Q&A. So very welcome on stage, Christian. Welcome and thanks.
Thank you, Björn. Thank you for the invitation. Good morning from London. I'm saying that on purpose because I'm an evening person. I function better later the day. So 12:30 in London is still good morning for me. Good morning to all of you. I won't waste a lot of time on introductions or preliminaries. Let me take you briefly through Britain post-Brexit and post-pandemic. Britannia is ruling the waves, ladies and gentlemen, at least the waves of the COVID virus pandemic. Plague Island, unfortunately, the Europe death toll champion of 2020 has done a major turnaround. You've read it in the papers. The Brits are bringing in a harvest of a very successful, although also very risky and very expensive inoculation campaign. And of a very strict, very conservative, very long-lasting lockdown. Right now, more than 60% of the population are vaccinated, and the 7-day incidence is down to below 30, and the country seems more than many others in continental Europe on track for the planned normalization of economic and social life that should, with the fall of all restrictions still in place, start on the 21st of June. The United Kingdom was hit harder by the pandemic than many other economies. The GDP in 2020 declined by 9.9%. Many reasons for that. Healthcare system that was hollowed out by decades of austerity policy, high population density, very pronounced social inequality. COVID hits the poor and the less educated much more than it hits others, and there are many of those around in the United Kingdom. but also a prime minister who took a long time, to change costume from get Brexit done, Boris, to crisis management. In an act of self-mutilation, the Brits also left the European Union, the common market and the customs union on the 1st of January with a very, very skinny trade agreement that does actually not do much. They were not prepared to give a lot, and in return, they didn't get much. They got a little bit of sovereignty back, but there's major in terms of trade. Great Britain did become a third country with all the hurdles and barriers that can be overcome, but that you have in place when you deal and trade with a third country outside of the Union. This has, of course, economically added insult to injury, as the Brexit hurdles are going to delay recovery to output levels of 2019 until 2023, when most of the continental Europe economies should be already, in the green zone of, adding growth to their economic affairs already. There's, of course, not only bad news, there's kind of general good news. The United Kingdom will remain the second largest economy in the European Union, and is very much on track if current demographic patterns continue, to become the largest European economy by mid of the century. It's a launching pad for international business, thanks to the colonial past of the kingdom and a vast international network that they still have and play on. And it's going to remain a knowledge hub, a tech hub of real global significance. London, ladies and gentlemen, is the world's second largest startup ecosystem, only behind the Silicon Valley, on par with New York, in a ranking determined by value, exit, startup success. There's about 35,000 startups with 480,000 people working there in the United Kingdom, 14,000 in London with 280,000 employees, but also strong regional hubs, for example, in Birmingham, focusing on manufacturing and industrial applications, Manchester, digital media, Southeast, creative industries, gaming, Oxford, Cambridge, of course, biotech and life sciences. 2019 saw a sweeping increase of VC investment in British startups, 10 billion, that's more than that were invested in Germany and in France together, and was a 44% up from 2018. Of course, 2020 has been a hard time for everybody, including the British startup ecosystem, with the investments level going down by 20%. Let me say a few words about the pillars and drivers of this, for European standards, very, very unique ecosystem. There's, of course, access to markets. I mentioned it before. The UK has a wide reach into the Commonwealth and into the Anglosphere in general. And I'm going to come back to this Anglosphere a little bit at the end of my presentation. And of course, London is Heathrow, and the other four airports, still a major European transportation hub. You can probably go even to Göteborg directly, but to any other place in the world, direct flights, easy access, at least in the past and hopefully in the future. The kingdom has a very startup-friendly support system, business environment, and policies in place. There's, the traditional entrepreneurial spirits. It's easy to set up a company, and there are serious tax incentives in place, not only for startups, but also for founders who can claim up to a 50% tax relief for money invested in startups. Most probably the most important pillar is, of course, easy access to a very mature and a very professional financing and funding ecosystem. London, although being dented by Brexit a little bit, remains the second largest financial center in the world. And of course, as such, attracts a lot of international investment. It's interesting to note that in 2020, 63% of investment in startups came from overseas, and that was up from 50% in 2016, 5 years ago. And of course, there is a well-organized and very accessible network of professional investors. There's we count about 12,000 in the entire country, 5,000, 4,500, 5,000 in London, angel investor networks, VC networks, very professional crowdfunding and peer-to-peer platforms. And there's, of course, this attraction, this access to talent and to knowledge. The foundation, definitely the magnetism of a diverse and cosmopolitan mega city, the metropolitan area with 9 million people. And of course, the high density of elite educational institutions, elite university, all in proximity of London. 3 of the 10 best of the world, Imperial College, Oxford, Cambridge, basically in or near London. Let me share at the end a few thoughts of on doing business, or better, maybe scaling up in the Anglosphere. I've spent 18 years of my professional career studying in Los Angeles, New York, and then now a couple of years here in London. And the Anglosphere is, something that's difficult to it's difficult to nail down what it actually is. So what I'm gonna mainly talk about the core zone. So not all the English-speaking countries, but the core zone, what the Brits used to used to call the white colonies. So the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, of course, including now the United Kingdom and Ireland. Different countries, different priorities, different ecosystems, but sufficient similarities to justify a strategic approach when you look into internationalization, into scaling up in the international field. They do require substantial investment because they are different. The Anglosphere is different from continental Europe, and the big problem is it's not obvious that it's different. When you get off the plane in Kazakhstan, different is something that that you immediately experience. When you get off the plane in London or in New York or in San Francisco or in somewhere else, difference, you have been there 1,000 times, if not in person, then on the television screen. So you go and think like, here, everything is the way it is at home, which is not the case. Doing business in the Anglosphere frequently requires a change of your business models, frequently requires a change of your marketing approach, and frequently requires an adjustment of your own mindset. So, but the return of investment, of course, comes from the sheer size of the market. It's about 3 times larger than the German-speaking, the famous DACH region, Germany, Austria, Switzerland. And it comes, of course, from the scalability of experiences. I'd like to take a look on the 3 major differences. And I'm going to say I'm going to simplify. I'm going to generalize so not everybody is going to see his own experiences immediately reflected in that. But let's start with this core region of the Anglosphere is a huge market. I spent almost 13 years in the US, and I got frequently the question, so what are the products services, processes, technologies that you can sell successfully in the US market? I said, you can sell anything in the US market, but the other side of the coin is everybody is here to sell everything. So it's a huge market, it's densely populated, it has a high degree of saturation. It increases, of course, which of course increases competitive pressure. The margins are low, the marketing costs are high, the advertising costs are high, and your distributors, partners have very little interest in spending their own money on launching a new product because it is a risky environment. The second one is the increased, maybe not so much in comparison to the Scandinavian countries, if I look at Björn still on my screen, but in comparison to the rest of Europe, CEE, Austria, Germany, the increased social and geographic mobility. Think of the following. If my son went to school in New York, he now studies in Los Angeles, probably meets a girl from Ohio, moves with her up to Ohio, gets a job in Florida, moves back to Florida. This, which is also very much true for the United Kingdom, which creates an architecture of relationships that is different from the one that we know from home. And the keywords that I can come up with is they are like fast, it's informal, it's not forever, it's superficial, it's targeted, goal-oriented, it's friendly, but it's maybe less committed. It's fast. People are not sure if they will be around for many more moons to come. So this is what regulates the way how they establish relationships, how they deal with relationships, and that needs to be understood. But the third and probably most important issue is the absence of fully comprehensive social security models, as we know them from most of our countries. Social systems focus on individual responsibility. They require a greater willingness to take risk, and they also, of course, pay out high risk premiums, as reflected, in the bonus systems, in the salary systems. So that means that everybody that you deal with has shares immediately, directly in the profits and losses of the relationship with your company. And that makes it so important that we have all gone from, no, we don't sell products or services anymore. We understand that we have to sell solutions. But what I found in the Anglosphere is not enough. You don't have to sell a solution. You have to sell a profit. You have to sell a calculated, evidence-based profit. You have to tell your customer when and to what extent he and his company will benefit from a relationship, from trading, from doing business, from partnering with your company. And in order to do that, the second rule is, of course, you have to know your customer. This involves now much more homework than you otherwise do. You have to find out how the people that you want to deal with make money, because otherwise you cannot answer their first question, which is not how good is your team, how good is your product, how good is your technology. But the first question is always going to be, how can I make money with dealing with your company? So you have to know your customer, and then you have to tell your customer. And here, the essential thing is, people in the Anglosphere speak usually only one language. They speak English. And they are very forthcoming when it comes to dealing with people that don't speak English as a first language. They're happy, they don't mind if you have an accent, they don't mind if you make one or the other mistakes until, or you get to them in writing. So until you have a web presentation, a marketing material, I don't believe still or you do a pitch and you have a PowerPoint presentation. Then there's no more space for mistakes. Then your English has to be perfect. I've seen too many good companies whose marketing materials and web presentations were translated by a native speaker who in his major job was an Australian ski instructor, moonlighting as a native speaker in a local translation agency. That's not really going to work. So you have to know your customer, you have to tell your customer, and you have to be visible. Being visible is now, everybody has to be visible, more visible than anywhere else, because of the configuration of the market that I spoke about. The fact that it is so saturated, that it is so densely populated, it is more likely that people will say, don't call us, we'll call you. Don't approach us, we'll find you. If we need you, we'll find you. We'll find you on platforms, on forums. We'll find you wherever you are, but we have a no-name policy and we have nobody to talk to you right now when you feel that it's important for you to talk to us. That's my 10 cents words of wisdom. Much more to come from my dear friend and colleague, Renate Schnutt, who has been running the innovation and startup programs at the Trade Commission for years now. Renate, you are on.
Hello and good afternoon. So now, as you are equipped with post-Brexit economic reality and the characteristics of the startup ecosystem, UK and the Anglosphere, like Mr. Kesberg, I will now continue with a brief glance at the manufacturing sector in the UK and its output, and followed by useful hands-on advice on internationalization extracted from my very own personal experience, from working the recent years closely with scale-ups. We all know the UK has a long history in manufacturing since the 18th century, so nothing new here. In the second half of the 20th century, its importance sank and the service sector predominantly took over. So this is also fueling into the UK startup ecosystem success, as Christian mentioned before. However, the UK is still in a very, very strong position, so the sixth largest manufacturing nation in the world, with its industry hotspots in East and West Midlands, so which is Birmingham, Derby, Nottingham, and also resulting in a sales output of 400 billion pounds. So according to recent data, this sector stands for more than 2.7 million people in the workforce, and they are earning approximately 33,000 pounds. So sector leaders are, of course, aerospace, automotive, but also food. And automotive saw currently a decline by falling demand within the motor vehicles and diesel vehicles, of course, because the UK committed very strongly to net zero and want to reach its targets at 2050. Manufacturing contributes to 11% of GVA. So it also accounts for 45% of its exports, and which pre-Brexit was, I think, 48% fueling into EU countries. And there will be incremental change because export output will reach more and more the overseas markets due to the trade agreements and their implication. Manufacturing also stands or represents approximately 70% of the business research and development, with which is quite outstanding and remarkable, I would say. So, having mentioned the first trait of strength, which is the R&D, the track record in R&D, and with the model infrastructure and facilities to incubate new applications like the vast network of the Catapult network. So design innovation, number of high-performing sectors like mentioned before, aerospace, automotive, but also the pharmaceutical industry, but also more and more coming thanks to incentivation is green tech, for example, renewables. Aerospace is already supporting the development and adoption of the specific technologies like additive manufacturing, also known as 3D printing, collaborative robots, AI, machine learning, also virtual and augmented reality. So the food manufacturers such as Unilever or other leaders are really strong in applying industrial digital technologies to address sustainability. So within the food sector, they are really strong with cooling monitor systems and also when it comes to food safety and traceability systems. So this is also quite interesting. The key enablers of the fourth industrial revolution in the UK is thanks to the strong AI and machine learning market. Because in the UK, there are approximately 200 SMEs covering that. Compared to Germany, there are only 80. And finally, already mentioned before by Christian, the capital is really a strong argument because London is a financial hub with many, many VCs and they are underpinning UK's strong position within all global ecosystems. So the weaknesses on the downside, businesses lack skills and they are currently facing talent shortage. and they also lack effective leadership. So they miss out with cross-sectoral collaborations partly. As in Austria, there exists also a poor level of adoption of industrial digital technologies in subsectors, and also predominantly in the SME area, to no surprise. And experts also found out that there could be more in terms of tax incentivization, and also they see the innovation asset a little bit under-leveraged. So to conclude, the UK is a leader in R&D, but struggles to develop and commercialize technology somehow. So after sharing what the UK manufacturing landscape is like, I would like to move on to the very applicable pitfalls I came across when entrepreneurs aim to establish a venture or a company or a subsidiary in the UK. So I would like to cover a couple of things here, which is self-pitching, mentioned before. Then I would like to move on to the cultural gap, and I would also cover a little bit the product market fit and what comes with it, and also what your mindset has to do with it. So there's absolutely no doubt that the UK is a suitable as a European springboard for English-speaking markets. And if you manage to tackle this sort of playground, it's very, very easy to go further and to multiply the concept which is proven in the home country, but also in the UK. So as often, the journey starts with very simple and profound things. And I would like to know that, are you prepared to enticingly introducing yourself so that people are fascinated, excited, glued to your lips and to what you have to say? Or does this make you uncomfortable, only the thought of it? So trust me, you really have to prepare yourself for that, as there exists a different expectation in the Anglosphere. So you have to stand out simply as that. So how to do it? So there is something called self-promotion, self-pitch, and I would say you should master how to introduce yourself. So since startup pitching made it to media, you generally have an idea of what it is might be. You should pitch not only on designated occasions, it can be seen more as a ongoing process. So self-pitch is a form of self-promotion. You should have this somehow at hand all the time. And Brits, predominantly Americans, take that kind of granted. So they were brought up with that. And frequently it makes us very, very uncomfortable in our skin because we are not culturally primed for that. So we haven't learned about shining too bright, and we love to push the product in front of us and we are ready to hide behind it. To make it relatable, let's have a look at an example right away. So it has to do with my introduction and also, of course, with yours. So my introduction normally is, my name is Renate Schnutt and I help Austrian startups to grow and scale in the UK. So this is also an implication for my mission. And normally this sort of introduction sparks further questions within bilateral conversations. And there is also, of course, a longer version you can prepare for to really make an entrance. You can see on the slide, really feel free to take a screenshot for that. It might help you for your next introduction. The long version can be applied as such for Austrian startups, so in my case, for Austrian startups who are ready to scale their business, the Startup Catapult is one of many. So I'm referring to the product here. One of many startup programs and initiatives of Advantage Austria that facilitate market entry and equips companies with knowledge and the right tools. So this would be my personal pitch. So really for the next time, think about it and give it a go. Feel free to screenshot the template, and we also can think about sending that out later. Once you nailed that, how to move on. When it comes to networking events in the UK, it's an utter faux pas not to be proactive or efficient. That is why we normally offer networking platforms within our learning journeys, startup programs, or any sort of event we are planning at our UK office. And here's a bit of the guidance. I really tried to boil it down to the very most important tips. So try to really strategically work the room. So whether it's a physical or a virtual room, and we ideally facilitate that with matchmaking prep work for our startups programs. Also ask for an attendees list. So mostly available, and you can do your research, you can investigate a little bit who is coming, and maybe you're also preparing some really good questions. What can I ask, or what is interesting for me? And also can be assumed that people are really preparing for that, because I hear it quite frequently that they are referring to something I've shared on LinkedIn, and then I was quite astonished, and then I thought, what a good way to make an entrance. It's not boring, and you right in between a really good conversation. And so what I can think about is also to really set targets for networking occasions, because really think about having 5 valuable contacts, or try to really break out of your comfort zone, approach people, ask them what they're doing. And when it comes to what you're saying, so think about common grounds, like talk about the weather, talk about sports. Brits do love that. They cultivate that sort of chatter, and give it a go. So it really helps you to nail it. And what is very, very important is to follow up right the next day or on the same day. Don't sell anything, but just check on someone. In case someone facilitated the introduction or the matchmaking, you are somehow owing this to the person, that you are really thinking about a timely follow-up on that. So I have to conclude regarding networking that doing business in Austria and the German-speaking markets are more straightforward. So a yes is a yes, a no is a no. You receive a no, or people are quite open. And it can be sometimes frustrating because there are friendly concessions due to their culture. And often it really happens out of friendliness, and you cannot read what they are actually thinking about. And this really drove me nuts in my first weeks. So take your time on that, and really keep that in mind, that there are huge differences. So my third thing I would like to cover within this session is the value proposition, or the product market fit. Once there is a functioning business model, service, product, entrepreneurs are prone to really try to copy and paste what they are offering in their home markets. And the common hypothesis is that what works in the home country might work somewhere else. Just take it and push it out to a foreign market. No, absolutely not. Don't do this. There exists also the idea of foreground to product, so just ignoring the uniqueness of a target market specifics. The third most popular mistake I came across is in terms of market entry, that people try to get lost in technical terminology, but which comes with a very awkward lecturing effect. So don't try to educate the market. Instead of educating a customer or train them on your product, especially in new markets, it's about finding the right answers. Like, what does the customer really want? What are their fears and what are their needs? And then look into how they are currently solving those. So for example, a research example I can give you is what types the average customer into Google to solve a problem. And this doesn't only apply to B2C, so I can assure you. In fact, it's also essential that you identify the customer language and use exactly that terminology to explain the unknown, e.g. your business model or your product. And you have to learn to understand what the customer here really wants and what you miss or what the market is lacking. And this is also a very, very important takeaway in my eyes. And also the value proposition which comes with it should be very simple and in customers' terms. I somehow want to conclude with the last and most important topic, which is also the essence of my learnings in the UK, because I was working in Austria and in Germany before. Failure has no culture in Austria or in the German-speaking market. We are not used to it. That's why we slip faster abroad and we refrain from bold steps. So once you're out and about on your internationalization path, aim for growth on many, many levels, not only on the commercial or on the business level. A practical example I'm coming across very often is investors prefer or demand to support ventures of entrepreneurs who have already failed at least once big time. This is fundamental, a fundamental prerequisite for entrepreneurial thinking. And I at first thought failing could only be cherished in high-risk environments. No, absolutely, absolutely not. There is always a chance to learn and grow, even the small things, even if you fail with product drafts or whatsoever. There's always learning behind. And what's behind this? This is the growth mindset. And this was a life-changing book for me, which was written by Carol Dweck, how to get a growth mindset. So I really tried to boil it down because it's a whole book, but the most important things are on my slide. Cultivate new habits, as simple and as hard as that. Everyone knows the New Year's resolution, so you can train this on a daily basis. So I tried to practically master picking up my habits, small things. And it's not about weird or freaking actions to get up at 4 a.m. to write a book or do hours of exercises. Not about that. So second, the more you dare, the more you gain. Don't force it, act on intuition. Sometimes growth needs time. Pushing your comfort zone, as said before, you can do this within a networking setting. Set unusual goals, which are tiny little bit scary, always helps you to really focus on it and stop believing in limitation. You can learn anything. This is the most important characteristic of a growth mindset. Another thing, try to be really, really honest. Try to be true. There is no more disarming as true words, openness, and also sort of humanity and compassion. And also examine the gap between your values and principles on your everyday action. This also helps you with your business, because this is really enticed in your mission. For example, would you like to be more environmentally friendly? Yeah, are you willing to give up your car, for example? So these are the questions. As I said, if you want to dig deeper, there's a really, really good book out there from Carol Dweck, The Growth Mindset. And so with that, I will close my little list of inspiration. And I would like to thank you and hope you have a great and inspiring rest of the day. And we're looking forward to your most pressing question here.
Thank you so much, Renate. Thank you so much, Christian. This was really a great introduction into the Anglo markets. And I have to tell you, I've worked with the Austrian trade, with Advantage Austria for many, many, many years, including personally with Christian many years in New York. And they are extremely professional in supporting you. So if you're a scale-up or a startup, want to go into a different market, use that opportunity, meet with the Austrian Trade Commissioner and their staff. They will support you. And they are very knowledgeable about the markets they are in. They might ask you some difficult question that you need to answer, but they are very nice people, very supportive, and help you every step of the way. So having that said, Renate, one question that came up is there a ratio of how many of all of the startups are going to be successful and how many are not?
Is there a ratio? I think I don't have numbers on my desk, but basically I think all of them will gain somehow, somewhere. The thing I can share is that all of those who attended one of our programs are still active in the market, but they are not very open about it. They're not sharing, because this is also part of the agreement with investors, that they can't do it, basically. But we recognize that they are here, they continue to have questions, and they are, some of them are established, and they are about to found a subsidiary here. This is also where we can help a lot. But unfortunately, I don't have any figures on numbers on that.
Okay, thank you so much. Björn, are you still on? Do you have any questions, Björn?
Yes, I'm still on, and I would really be happy in case you can answer the question. If you think that UK have the power to increase in various innovation index, will improve the situation, or will it decrease, and why? So do you think that UK have the power to, let's say, go higher in various innovation rankings, and why?
I strongly believe that there's the UK is definitely going through a period of weakness. I mean, they had this double whammy of Brexit and Corona, but they have been always focused on they do know that R&D by itself it's not doing it, and there's probably no second country in Europe with a pronounced innovation policy, and the attempt to set up an innovation network that spreads all over the country. I think Renate has mentioned them briefly. They have kind of copied the German Fraunhofer Institute model, and implemented it here as these catapults, where they try to kind of arrange for a more structured cooperation between academia, industry, and all that, financed and supported by government funds, but also by contributions, policy contributions from the government. Altogether, I believe that the United Kingdom has in the past, and this is something that we kind of focus on strongly, a place where it is easier and faster to see where developments are going. I mean, think of Imperial, Oxford, Cambridge, Cranfield. I mean, there are big names, and a lot of their research is really far out there, and it's kind of played back into these catapult centers. So I do strongly believe that Britain's ranking in innovation charts will improve, although it has, and I agree with that, shown some weaknesses in the last couple of years.
Thanks a lot for a good answer. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So we are running out of time. Thank you very much, Björn. Thank you very much to Christian Kesberg and Renate Schnutt for joining us and sharing their vast experience about startups and scale-ups in the United States, in the UK, and the impact of the Brexit. Really appreciate that. All the best to you guys. All the best to London and Gothenburg. Thank you. So we are going into a break now. We changed a little bit our program today because, unfortunately, we had to drop one segment, which is the investment segment with Isabella Hermann-Schön. Isabella Hermann-Schön's baby decided to come a few days early, so she had no opportunity to join us this afternoon. They are both doing well, and we send our best greetings to mom and baby. Hope you guys are fantastically doing well. So we're going to make a break now for 30 minutes, come back at 2:45, and then I'm going to meet another co-location center director, Anthony Bichouan from San Sebastian, who is covering our area west. And there we will talk briefly about his experience. He was a man of the first hour of EIT manufacturing, so he can tell us a little bit about how EIT manufacturing came about and the entire process of establishing this organization. So join us back in 30 minutes. See you then. Thank you.